Hello and welcome to my teaser analysis video, which is the second part of the teaser series I'm doing, in anticipation of episode 8. I'll be going through all the scenes meant to be in episode 8, forming them into groups based on atmosphere, and then putting them in order chronologically. The first scene we get seems to be the collapse of a planet which could be Copper 9, however we're supposed to get a flashback in this episode, meaning this could be Earth and not Copper 9. In this scene, we have Sin doing a cutting gesture with her hands while winking and doing a thumbs down in the background. For those who don't see the thumbs down, look to the left in the background, you should see it. Next, we have a scene where Uzi looks very concerned, but also has a little bit of oil on her face. I don't know where the oil came from, but she probably just witnessed someone die. In the next scene, we can actually see Nori's kooky insane closet, and I don't think they're going to return here. I think the purpose of showing us the scene is to show that the gravity's gotten a little wonky in different locations, and this is just like a callback. I don't think the characters are actually going to return to the bunker. Now we see Jay pointing her rocket launcher at someone, but with remorse, so it's clear that she has some amount of regret for what she's about to do. Once again, this could either be Earth, or it could be Copper 9. I'm not exactly sure, there's probably going to be a flashback at some point in this episode, so it makes sense that this could be either or. Then we have Uzi re-entering orbit, and there's not much to say about this scene. They clearly put it in to explain why she's in the other scenes, although this can tie to the planet's collapse as to why she's re-entering orbit. Now, there isn't much to say about the scene. Uzi's just holding the railgun that Khan made. However, if you look to the back left, you can see outlines of trees, so maybe she's near Camp 98.7. Now in this scene, it looks like Sin is in that area Uzi was earlier in the teaser. In fact, she might be hunting her down as she's breaking the lights like she did in episode 7. Again, we have Jay, but in this area, we have flesh covering the walls. I think she might be fighting the Solver. However, it's hard to tell. This one's not so special. However, it's clear that Sinessa's probably about to, stab someone on the surface because we can see snowflakes. Once again, this scene doesn't really show us much. It's just Sinessa at the entrance of Cabin Fever Labs. So at first, the scene was not that interesting to me because it was just another fight scene with Sin. I couldn't really pull anything from it. However, once I looked at it a little closer, I found something very interesting. It's not Sinessa. It's the rocket that misses her. That rocket belongs to one drone, or at least one drone we've seen. Jay does not use that rocket. N doesn't use that rocket. They both use a slow homing missile that's wider and shorter. V has been the only drone shown to use that rocket. So this scene just had major implications that just went unnoticed for me. But now that I've noticed it, it's way bigger than what I originally thought. Especially because it means that V doesn't die or get dismantled by the Sentinels. If she's going to become a core like the thumbnail suggests for the teaser, then Sinessa's gonna rip out her core. It's not gonna be the Sentinels, because at this point in the story, it couldn't have been. That is, unless the teaser thumbnail is actually a red herring, and they deliberately change the color of the eye to make you think that it's V, and it's actually Nori. That's another possibility. Now, we see N, who looks very worried in this scene, and if we look to the left, we can see that same red piping, so maybe he's in the same scene with Sinessa and Uzi in that hallway. This scene is rather interesting as it's a continuation from what we saw before. It's that same room with the red pipes that we both spotted Uzi and Sinessa in, except now they're confronting one another, or at least Sinessa's confronting Uzi, as we can definitely see her tendril to the left with the hand at the end crawling next to Uzi as she's incredibly worried. This does make me question whether or not Uzi saw someone die, as her fear seems to be perpetual rather than momentary. We also see N quite worried as well. However, this is on the surface, it's not in the same area, and we know this because of the snowflakes and the snow. So in two different scenes, they're both going to see something really shocking. So there's going to be this big reveal probably that is going to be revealed individually, and we're not going to know until we're shown later. That being said, if I had to guess, the solver probably ended up killing other characters that mattered to both En and Uzi. In the next scene, we see Uzi and Sinessa, where Sinessa is lunging at her, and there's not really much to say about that other than it's kind of weird that the entire background is somewhat tinted red. However, this is on the surface, as we can see snow in the background as well. Now, my favorite scene in the entire teaser, it's Khan doing the goofiest ha I've ever seen, ever. I don't know what he's doing it at too. He probably just dodged a bullet or something, and he said ha, missed me, or something of that nature, got someone, or got one over on someone. I don't know what he did or what he dodged, but the man is beyond proud. It's amazing. And in this scene, the last one, we just see a spaceship flying through space. However, I'm doubtful that this is anything more than a flashback, as why would they show a potential ending of the show? It seems like they would deliberately just put this in to throw us off our game and then reveal it at the beginning of the 8th episode as a flashback, rather than the actual ending. With that said and done, I'm now going to take those scenes and place them into groups based on background. I'm going to give an explanation on what's happening in these scenes, and then I'm going to order them chronologically. You've got to be kidding me. This came out in the middle of making this video. So I decided right there, I'm going to stop and see if they post anything else in the next few days. And then 2 days later, they just post hints they did in previous episodes. So I'm now resuming this, and I apologize for the delay and how broken this might sound later on. Now, we're going to go back to the video. In group 1, we have 3 scenes. I believe these 3 scenes are going to be part of a flashback that we're going to see at the beginning of the episode, which would make sense because this seems like an outcome or an ending for episode 8, and you wouldn't blatantly show that off in the teaser, so I think this is just misdirection, and this is just Earth that's exploding and collapsing, something we know that already happened. So it would make sense. Another thing is, if they get off the planet, that would be a cliffhanger ending, which would hint to another season or a sequel, which I don't think they're gonna do. I think this is the end, kaput. And when I say sequel, I know I've talked about it before, but I think if they're going to do a sequel, it's gonna be someone else's story. It's gonna be a whole new story. I don't think that these characters are gonna survive, so if I had to say it, I don't think they're getting off the planet. I think that's a flashback. Group 2 is a little special as it only has one scene. Uzi re-entering the atmosphere, which has to happen fairly early on to have her in the bulk of the episode because it is her story. In fact, I think it's going to happen right after the flashback at the beginning, kind of like episode 7, where you get the flashback, then we get a minute of Nori for the first time. So after the flashbacks, we'll just get the scene of Uzi plummeting into the atmosphere of Copper 9. And from there, she'll probably land and have to find the rest of the group, and when she meets up with the group, she'll get her railgun. Now, let's go on to Group 3. So Group 3 is going to happen a little later in the episode. We first need the Jay versus Thad and Lizzie confrontation. Now, I have no idea if they're actually going to fight, but they'll probably have an initial fight followed by an interruption brought to you by En and Sinessa, probably emerging from Cabin Fever Labs. And then Lizzie will somehow lose the railgun, drop it, or maybe she'll just lose interest in it and just focus on her phone. Who knows? Or she could die. Any of those options work, and that will lead to Uzi getting it slightly later and then joining in on the fight. And that's all it is. It's just them fighting. And then En's gonna see something probably horrific. Maybe like Thad and Lizzie died to Sinessa. That could be it. That literally could just be it. And then Khan is doing that amazing laugh, the goofiest laugh I've ever seen. Now we're on to group 4, which seems to be in a whole new location that we haven't seen before. Or maybe it is a location we've somewhat seen. This looks like another bunker that we just haven't been to yet. Then again, it could just be another section of the bunker that we just haven't seen yet. So who knows? But if I had to guess, they're heading back toward the city where this all started. So we're getting away from Cabin Fever Labs. And the church and all that, or the cathedral, who cares? And we're gonna see something probably horrific. My guess of the dumbfounded look that half the characters have is probably when Sinessa, outreaches all of her hands and backs away into the darkness. And that's why they're all shocked. Because they're not like seeing something tragic, but rather all these hands are just, waltzing around and they're trying to avoid them. If I had to guess. Have you ever seen that scene from Infinity Train Season 1 where the stewardess, she is like this giant tendril monster almost? In one of these sections, she extends all of her tendrils all over this area, kind of waiting for the characters to touch it. And when they finally drop something and it lands in one of her claws, she rips apart the entire area and catches them. So I think Sinessa's going to do the same thing where she kind of outreaches all of her tendrils all over the place and they have to kind of like avoid it. I also think that after some nonsense happens and we get all the goo and sloshy flesh forming over the walls, we're gonna see Jay come out and potentially try to either kill the characters or Sinessa. Now we're on the final group, group 5, which seems to be taking place at the Spire. Now, first things first, you're probably wondering, hey, why is Nori's closet included? Well, you see how Sinessa's doing the cutting gesture, the snip snip, which is becoming popular. I think she's cutting off the gravity, and we're gonna switch to that scene, which is why that's happening. Even like the scene I put to the top right here, it definitely looks like she's lunging at Uzi, but at the same time, it looks like they're floating. But hopefully we get an explanation to what the Spire does in this end confrontation, as well as a satisfying ending, because there isn't much to say other than that. Except that Jay might have to make a difficult decision. It's not clear what gets redacted from the drone's eyes, but I think under Sin's administration, she's redacting human appearances, and that's why you can't see anyone in the flashback. But under Uzi's administration, they probably can see everything for what it is, so Enna and V will both be able to see Sinessa for who she is, but I don't think Jay will. So this might be that scene where she reluctantly just comes to accept that Tessa's dead and shoots Sinessa. And I think that's it. I think that's really all we're seeing, because she clearly has some level of remorse, and the only person we've known for her to actually care about is Tessa, so I don't know what else that could be. But that's gonna have to do it for this video. I hope you like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.